Hello students. This is a big surprise. This is Teacher Rudy. I am going to be here with you guys until the end of the season. So for me it's a pleasure again to explain the following topic, which was left in unit number 6 about giving to others. This one was related to offer help to other people in natural disasters. We are suffering a lot from natural disasters nowadays because of this pandemic. So also the other topic that we have to talk about is the relative pronouns and relative clauses or adjective clauses. I'm going to explain many of the examples that you have here. I brought some information that maybe you are familiar with, but the main idea is to reinforce it. So in here, you're going to have a big display of words, expressions, combinations, and I hope you guys understand. Okay, students, I am going to talk about natural disasters, in which I am going to include some of these resources about grammar stuff as relative pronouns and relative clauses. So please listen whenever I try to mention those in this extract that I found. And it says like this: natural and human-caused disasters affect thousands of people each year. Major adverse events such as these have the potential to cause catastrophic loss of life and physical destruction. They are often unexpected and can leave whole communities in shock. People who live through disaster can experience emotional distress, feelings of anxiety, constant worrying, trouble sleeping, and other expressions like symptoms are common responses to disasters before, during, and after the event. Many people are able to bounce back from disasters with help from family and the community, but others may need additional support to cope and move forward on the part of recovery. Anyone can be at risk, including survivors, living in the impacted areas, and first responders and recovery workers. Natural disasters are large-scale geological and meteorological events that have the potential to cause loss of life or property. These types of disasters include tornadoes and severe storms, hurricanes and tropical storms, floods, wildfires, earthquakes, drought. Severe storms and floods are the most common types of natural disasters reported in the United States. These meteorological events are occasionally preceded by presidential emergency declarations requiring state and local planning prior to the event, such as evacuations and protection of public assets. Disasters stress helping staff unavailable to speak to those who call or text before, during, and after a natural disasters. The main idea of this is, you guys, that in this context I am using these resources as I was mentioning before, which are the relative clauses or adjective clauses, and then we can use as well the adjective pronouns or relative pronouns. I am going to explain this later on in the next following diapositives or slides. So let's continue with the other one. Okay guys, maybe you are familiar with this information here since you have seen maybe this in your book or maybe in your platform. I'm going to read it faster, as I said. Sometimes I'm going to re-mention some of the stuff that is here, but with much more details. But let's read with me, please. We have adjective clauses, also called relative clauses, are used to add information about nouns. Usually the adjective clause directly follows the noun it refers to. These clauses are introduced by a relative pronoun such as who, that, which, whose, where, or when. You have seen these words before, guys, but as well, you know that in this moment or in this situation, they do not make any questions to no one. But what they do is they introduce more information. So we are going to use this as pronouns. That's why they are called pronouns. So let's read it, please. An identifying adjective clause, sometimes called a restrictive clause. Now, here you have the two names, identifying adjective clause or restrictive clause. Gives essential information about the noun it refers to. In writing, commas surround the identifying adjective clause. Sting is the singer who helped establish the rainforest foundation. The other example says the foundation that's been established is involved with conservation. Now, in the other hand, we have a non-identifying adjective clause. The name or the other name that it has is non-restrictive clause. Gives extra information about the noun it refers to. It is set off in a written sentence by commas. The Rainforest Foundation, which was founded in 1989, is working to protect forests around the world. Now we have the pronunciation note. In speaking, people often power and lower their tone of voice to say the words in a non-identifying relative clause. As I said, when I was reading this example right here, the Rainforest Foundation, I make a pause and I say which was founded in 1989. I made a pause and I continue reading. Is working to protect forests around the world. So that's what I did, and that's what it says about pronunciation. Now we have who refers to people. It can be the subject or the object of an adjective clause. We are going to discuss later, guys, because we have these two grammar parts here, and they must be displayed and well explained later. In the example, we have Sting is a musician who, and it is working as a subject, is concerned about the environment. The other example says musicians who are concerned about the environment sometimes donate their time to raise funds. In spoken English, who is usually used instead of the more formal whom, even when it is the subject of an adjective clause. There are many hundreds of young people who or whom, which is the object, he has inspired. The other part of the grammar says, in spoken English, who is usually used instead of the more formal whom, even when it is the object of an adjective clause. There are many hundreds of young people who or whom, which is the object, he has inspired. Now we have the case of the pronoun that. That in which refer to the place and things. They can be the subject or object for an adjective clause. I say that, but also you can use which. In some situations it's preferable to use which. The example says the Rainforest Foundation is a group that, which, you can use both, he founded to protect the world's natural resources. That cannot be used in a non-identifying adjective clause, sometimes called a non-restrictive clause, or after a preposition. You must use which. The foundation, which is working with human rights groups, raises money to protect tropical rainforests. Unidentifying adjective clause or restrictive clauses. English speakers often delete the relative pronoun when it is the object of the verb. This happens only when you guys speak. This organization and that is surrounded by the parentheses. And when you speak, guys, you are able to omit this. And it says this is an organization many young people are interested in. So you can use it, or you may include that just only if you want to. Whose refers to people's possessions. It can be the subject or object of an adjective clause. That's the man whose organization I want to work for. We have also where refers to a place, when refers to a time. They can be the object of an adjective clause. We are not going to use this much, so we can have these examples right here, but just in case you need help, guys, I can give you more examples online. You can write to me. For the rest of the information, I prepare at least one example or two for each grammatical point or grammatical part. So we have Brazil is one of the countries where the foundation's efforts have been successful. The foundation was started at a time when many people were unaware of the environmental problems we face. Let me tell you that if we don't have enough time to finish this first video, you can have a second video in which the explanation goes on. So I'm just telling you this because I have only 15 minutes in this system and this application that I downloaded, but I'm going to make a second video in which you're going to see the rest of the explanation. So now we have the explanation of identifying and non-identifying relative clauses. That's the other part that is really important to understand. In here we have relative pronouns, who, which, whose, whom, when, where, etc. You know, these words, they usually make questions to find out about something or a person. In this case, what they do is they provide much more information. They detail more about a subject or an object. And the definition of relative clauses, the ones that identify or provides more information about a person or thing. So these relative pronouns include more words. Altogether, they make a relative clause. That's what it says here. We also have identifying. What is identifying? Is when a clause describes a person or thing about something we know from, and it is essential to be told. Identifying is the ones that are going to give us a precise and very important information about the subject or an object. So that's why they are called identifying. Then also we have the non-identifying. It says when the clause brings more not relevant information in addition about the subject of the sentence. And sometimes it is possible to omit and separate it by commas. The extra information which is provided with this non-identifying clause, it is going to be surrounded by commas. That means that it can be omitted. That means that it's not so important. It just gives much more. Just sometimes it's not really necessary, but it exists and it is much better to explain it. And I have one example for one of the kind. It says identifying or non-identifying relative clauses examples. State whenever the relative clauses in the following sentences are identifying or non-identifying. I bring two for each, so you can have an example how it's done and you understand better. The identifying one says, I have got a book which is really interesting to read. In here I'm using which since book is an object, which a book is an object, and the information or extra information that I am provided is really interesting to read. Second, we have, I met a girl who sells flowers. I am using who since I'm talking about a person which is a girl, and the extra information is introduced by who. It says sells flowers. In this case, these are identifying because they give proper and very like a detailed information about these people or this girl. Now we have the other part is non-identifying. We have Maya, who sells flowers on the street, is a pretty girl. Please pay attention to the sentence because after Maya we have a comma and it separates the full relative pronoun that is introduced by who, which is the relative pronoun. Who sells flowers on the street, it is an extra information that maybe we can omit. It cannot be necessary sometimes, but we want to give more details and we say Maya, who sells flowers on the street, it's a pretty girl. Or you can say Maya, it's a pretty girl. See guys, that's omittable. That's something that is like an alternative for you. And number 4 says, this is Jane, comma again, who is very talented, comma, works with my sister. The information that is extra is who is very talented. You may omit that. But in this case, if you want to introduce it, use commas and it becomes into non-identifying. You can say, this is Jane, who works with my sister. It can be one. But if you want to add more, I'm using this, I say, this is Jane, who is very talented, works with my sister. I hope I am like giving some nice and well-detailed examples, guys. In this slide, I have relative clauses with who, as subject, and object clause. As subject, we have the example. Dr. Robson is a doctor who has cured many patients with cancer. As subject, we have there are a lot of patients who he has cured from cancer, sorry. And the first one, a subject, Dr. Robson is a doctor who. Why is a subject? Since who is renaming who? Dr. Robson. That's why we use this as a subject. In the second sentence, we have there are a lot of patients who he has cured from cancer. Who is renaming? There are a lot of patients or patients. In this case, who is not renaming the doctor, and that's why it is considered as an object. We can ask to the verb, who has he cured? And the answer is going to be, there are a lot of patients. That's why it is considered as an object. We are going to continue in the next video, guys. I'm so sorry, but